Good morning students, welcome back to all of you. Today I am going to teach all of you the second chapter of geography of class 8. The topic is land, soil and water resources. In this chapters we will study about the land, soil and water as resources. In the previous chapters you all have read or I have taught to all of you that how many kinds of resources are there: natural resources, human resources and human made resources. I have explained in a details these resources to all of you in the previous chapters. In these chapters, that means the chapters which we are going to study, we will study about the land, soil and water resources. So let's start with an introductory note. You all know about it very well that land is the most important of all natural resources for all of us. It serves as the source for all other resources such as minerals, forest, the life forms above and below the surface of earth like plant and animals. Different types of soil surface, water, rivers and lakes, human settlement and populations. For all these things, land is the very most important of all natural resources. So let's understand land and other important resources such as soil and water and their uses in more detail in this chapter. Land resources. What do you understand by land resources? I have explained to you in earlier chapters that all the things that we use is resources. So land is also used to cultivate crops. So it is also termed as resources. So land, all human beings, is also resources. All human beings live on land and use it for agriculture and various other purposes. All human beings live on land and use it for various agricultural and other purposes. What percentage of the earth is land? It is only about 30% of the total area of the surface is land. Only 30% of the area of total surface of the earth is land and 70% is water. Only 30% is land, 70% water and only 30% of the total surface of area is land. Is it clear to you? Of surface is land. About 1/3 of the earth's total land area is not suitable for living or is uninhabitable. So land surface is also not the same everywhere. Somewhere it is flat, somewhere very high hills, and somewhere are plateaus, hills and mountains at various locations. So its surface is not same everywhere. The different types of land present different types of resources. Therefore, all places are not evenly populated. In addition, the areas with extremely cold or hot climate are sparsely populated. Soil fertility also varies from place to place. Somewhere the soil is very fertile and somewhere the soils are barren. So for example, the Arctic areas and the desert and high mountains are favorable for the activities and practices such as farming. On the other hand, most of the plains across the world are very fertile. Generally, humans tend to live in areas with a moderate climate and fertile soil and level land. The plains have all these features, so they are the most populous area in the world. The lands which have all these features, that means level land, moderate climate and fertile soil, is most populous area in the world where people like to live. Land use. Land is used by the peoples with different purposes or with the purpose to cultivate crops or agricultural practices. Land use, pattern of land use tell us how land is being utilized by humans. Generally, land is used for the purpose of agriculture, for the purpose of settlement and other urban developments such as road and industries by humans. land use Land use refers to the economic use of land. To the economic use of land. The land can be used as agricultural fields to cultivate crops or as an industrial area to establish factories. Land cover is a physical element that covers the land. Vegetations, building or water are included in it. Land use depends on physical factors such as topography, climate, availability of water, soil and mineral. So it clears to you that land are used by the humans with a different purposes, with a purpose to cultivate crops, with a purpose for the settlement, with a purpose to establish a factory and for the development of the rural areas or urban development such as the rural and industries by the humans. So it is estimated that about 11% of the earth's surface is used for cultivations, forest covers another 28% while pastures account for 34%. Urban areas cover approximately 5% of it. The rest of the land resources include land that could be productive but has been for economic purposes such as built up structures, parks and gardens, barren lands and even wasteland are included in this category. Land use also varies from one part of the world to the other and also within a smaller area. Change in the pattern of land use is one of the main reason for many process of environmental change. It influences the basic resources of land use, including the soil. Poor land management has degraded vast amounts of the land, reduced our ability to produce enough food, and is a major threat to the rural livelihoods in many developing countries. Now we are going to study about the classification of land. Classification of land. Here students, lands are classified on the basis of ownership. On the basis of ownership, private land and community land. There are two types of land, private land and community land. On the basis of ownership, private land is used and owned by a person or a group of people for personal use. When the land is used for personal use, for a people, for an individual, by one individual and by a group of people, then that is considered as a private land. And community land is owned and used by the whole community. The land which is used by the whole community is called community land. Examples such as like parks, roads, forests. So these are the land which is used by the whole of the community. So that's why this type of land is known as the community land. These community land are also called common property resources. These are also called common property resources because this is used by the by the people of the community as a whole. Changing pattern of the land use. our next points of this chapter is changing pattern of land use. Land use has been changing over the years. Over the years, human population has been increasing at an alarming rate, and so have their demand on land. Agriculture, mining, deforestation, roads, industry, and settlements are some of the changes made by the humans to the land use. Scientific estimates that between one third and one half of our land surface has been modified by the human activities. So this is the classification of land on the basis of the ownership. Now let's study about the land degradations. As I have explained you in the previous chapter about the degradations and the agents of degradations like weathering, erosion and depositions. I have explained to you in detail. So now let's study about the land degradation. Land degradations happen when the land is no longer suitable for agriculture. When the land is no longer for the suitable for the agriculture, then that is called land degradation. Some important reasons for this include increased populations and its ever increasing pressure on land, deforestation, soil erosion, overgrazing by animals, excessive single cropping and expansions of the cities, and for removal of the nutrients from the land, and add to this natural disasters such as floods and landslide. So due to this, land is no longer suitable for the agriculture. So when the land is no longer suitable for the agriculture, that is called land degradations. So the impact of land degradation is very huge. Land productivity goes down, leading to uncertainty about food, and this becomes the cause of food scarcity. It often leads to the migrations and general destructions of the ecosystem. Can we control these situations too? Perhaps we can to some extent. It is very expensive to reclaim degraded land. Sometimes severely degraded land might not be reclaimed at all. So our next point is land conservation. Land conservation. Let's study about it. Land conservation. Dear students, land is important for the survival of humans. You know that happening only on land. It is the habitat for all life and treasure house of valuable minerals and soil that are important for the economic development of the world. So, how can you conserve your land resources? Let's discuss about it. Think about the afforestation. I have explained you afforestation and deforestation. Cutting down of the trees on large scale is known as the deforestation, and planting of a tree is known as the afforestation. So think about the afforestation. Proper sewage, disposals, plant crop rotations are to preserve soil nutrients, allowing grass to grow, appropriate disposal of hazard, industrial waste, proper use of fertilizer and pesticides, and finding ways to protect ecological diversity. Degraded lands or wastelands can be cultivated for agricultural too. with some direction and financial help from the government. Another easy step that you can take as an individual is to stop throwing garbage such as soda, can, paper and other wastes like plastic, bag, empty wrapper and use aluminum foil in the fields. If you will follow these steps, if you will do this, you will be able to conserve your land resources. Okay, that's much in this video. More in the next one. In the next video, we will study or we will discuss about the soil resources. In this, I have completely covered the land resources. So once again, I would like to give a quick review of the topics what I taught you. Land resources. I have explained you that land is the most important of all natural resources. It serves as a source for all others resources such as mineral, forest and life forms above and below the surface. So all human beings lives on a land and use it for agriculture and for various purposes. What percentage of the earth is land? It is only about 30% of the total area of the earth's surface is land and 70% is waters. About one-third of the earth's total land area is not suitable for living or uninhabitable. The land surface is also not the same everywhere. There are level plains, uplands or plateaus, hills, mountains and so on. Land uses. Pattern of land. We use how land is being utilized by humans. Land use tells us. The pattern of land use tells us that how land is utilized by humans. Generally, land is used for the purpose of agriculture and settlements and other urban developments such as the road and industry and by humans. Land use refers to the economic use of the land. The land can be used as agricultural fields to cultivate crops or as industrial areas to establish factories. Land cover is the physical element that covers the land. Vegetations, building or water are included in it. It is estimated that about 11% of the earth's surface is used for the cultivation. Forest cover another 28%, while pastures account for 34%. Classification of land. Land can be classified on the basis of ownership. There are two kinds of land, private land and community land. Private land is a land used and owned by a person or a group of peoples for personal use, whereas a community land is owned and used by the whole community, like the parks, roads and forests are the good example of community land. Changing pattern of land use. Land use has been changing over the years. Human population has been increasing at an alarming rate, and so have their demand on land, agriculture, mining efforts, deforestation, roads, industry and settlement are some of the changes made by the humans to the land use. Land degradations. Land degradations happens when the land is no longer suitable for agriculture. When the land is no longer suitable for the agriculture, that is termed as land degradations. Some important reasons for this include increased populations and its ever-increasing pressures on land, deforestation, soil erosion, overgrazing by animals, excessive single crop, and expenses of the cities and salinizations. Together, all these are responsible for the removal of the nutrients from the plants, from the land, and add to this natural disaster such as the flood and landslides are very responsible for the land degradations. Land conservations. We have studied what land is important for the survival of humans. It is the habitat for all life, and the tree is a house of valuable minerals and soil that are important for the economic development of the world. So how can you conserve your land? and what are the steps what we should do to conserve the land resources. Think about the afforestations, that means planting more and more trees, proper sewage disposals, plant crop rotations, predations to preserve soil nutrients, allowing grass to grow, appropriate disposal of hazardous industrial waste, proper use of fertilizer and pesticides can be pesticides, and finding ways to protect ecological diversity. Degraded lands or wasteland can be cultivated for agriculture too, with some directions and financial help from the government. Another easy way to step that you can take as an individual is to stop throwing garbage such as soda cans, papers and other wastes like plastic bags and into rampers should not be found on the lands, and use aluminium foil, because all these affects the fertility of the land and makes it barren. So by following these steps we can conserve the land resources, which is very useful and most of the all important resources for all of us. That's sufficient in this video. More in the next one. In the next video we will discuss about the soil resources. Have a great day to all of you. Thank you for listening me.